Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Shannon Farrell. I'm the diplomat in residence for the North Central region. I cover Michigan, Indiana, Kentucky, and Ohio. I have had the pleasure of being in Michigan, but so far I haven't been able to travel, and I'm happy at least that I'm here to be virtual with you all. I have been in the State Department. I've worked for the State Department for 19 years. I am a Foreign Service officer, what many might understand to be diplomat. And I have, in the 19 years that I served in the State Department, served 13 of those 19 years overseas. I am a consular career track officer. We have 5 different career tracks for Foreign Service officers. And this photo of me with then Vice President Biden, now President Biden, was when I was the Consul General in Ireland, and he came for a 6-day visit actually to 3 different counties, and I was the overall control officer. As I was saying, so that was my last overseas tour. I've been back stateside for 5 years. Most recently, before coming to this job, I was in Washington, D.C. working at the State Department. Next slide. So the State Department is the oldest cabinet agency. We've been advancing U.S. diplomacy since 1789, and that is our current Secretary of State, Antony Blinken. I just had the pleasure of watching him do a virtual talk with University of Michigan Ann Arbor Board Policy School students before joining this session with you all. He is the principal advisor to the president on foreign policy issues. As Foreign Service officers, and I'll kind of give you a little background about me. I am from Wisconsin, a very small town of 3,000 people, just north of Milwaukee. And I never knew about the State Department growing up. It was not something that I knew anyone that did that job. You know, I heard the term ambassador, but I really didn't know what diplomats did until I was selected to be a study abroad program at 15, the American Field Service, and I went to Paraguay for a year in the mid-'80s. And there I would meet a first tour Foreign Service officer at the embassy when the 10 American students who were studying that year in Paraguay were invited by the ambassador. And that's how I kind of learned about it and then really became excited about it. That officer, very much not in a formal presentation like I'm giving to you, but he told me about his job and what he did. And I kind of filed it away. I was a lawyer before coming to the State Department for 8 years, but that was a dream that I think I always wanted after that day when I was 15. And so we spend the majority of our tours, whether we're Foreign Service officers or Foreign Service specialists. We have 24 specialist career tracks in the Foreign Service. So basically anything you're studying, there's a job for you in the State Department. We have engineers, we have doctors, we have psychiatrists, we have people that study climate issues. We just have a brand new Bureau of Cybersecurity and Digital Policy. We have obviously humanitarian, refugee, migration, international relations, our Bureau of Economics, everything that you could want to pursue and have an interest in, there would be an opportunity, and of course, information technology. Next. This is just a snapshot of the numbers at the State Department in terms of how many people work there and what they do. And I thought for a bit, I'd break it down and show you in photos of my career. On the left is actually my tour in Afghanistan. I served there for 13 months as the sole State Department representative in Western Afghanistan to a Spanish-led provincial reconstruction team. I was, in fact, I volunteered and was sent there because of my fluency in Spanish. The base required somebody who was completely bilingual. All the communications and briefs were done in Spanish, except I had my political assistant Sarwar, who was an English speaker and then spoke both Pashto and Dari. And he is what we call a locally employed staff member. And they are really the institutional backbone of the State Department overseas. Some of them, I had a local staff member who'd served over 40 years at one of the posts that I was at. They have a deep understanding of the culture of the country and contacts, and really they inform all the work that we do in being diplomats overseas. The other is civil service employees. You'll note they are the institutional backbone in Washington. And we, just as we have people that have served 40 years overseas in our embassies and missions locally, we have people that have served in the State Department for over 40 years and just working on one issue where they are the absolute expert in the department, if not, in the United States on those issues. Foreign service specialists, mentioned we have 24 different career tracks. I call them diplomats with special skills. I'm a generalist, and we have 5 career tracks within the generalist foreign service. They're diplomats with special skills because they could do my job, but I could not do theirs. They have to have minimum education requirements and other skill sets in order to encumber those positions. But to become a foreign service officer, you just have to pass the application process, the foreign service officer test, and be invited to take the foreign service oral assessment in Washington and then pass it. We have, as you can see, posts in 191 countries, but we also have agencies throughout the United States. We have a passport agency here in Detroit, where I am in Michigan, and various field offices. We do have a diplomatic security presence in Michigan, and throughout large US cities in the United States. In the photo at the bottom is me. I was tapped to be one of the first flyaway teams to go into Haiti after the earthquake in January of 2010. And we were on the ground for 2 weeks. That was taken right at the airport in Santo Domingo, where we flew with our Coast Guard colleagues who flew us in, and we watched from above the devastation as we landed on the embassy grounds in the helicopter. On the top there is when I was a first tour officer in Ethiopia, which was my first tour. It was a great 2 years there in the early 2000s. And those are diplomats with other missions that serve Ethiopia. Addis Ababa is a very large mission, very important. The African Union is headquartered there. I was really fortunate to get to go to Ethiopia on my first assignment. We have a friend and colleague from Ghana, Mo, who's standing right next to me with the yellow tie. He is the current ambassador actually to South Sudan. That was his first tour. Their services tend to be a little smaller than ours. And so a lot of my colleagues and friends that I met that first tour, Hassan from Kuwait and Joanne from Canada, they have moved up to very senior ranks, including ambassadorships in their services. Next. What we're looking for. We are looking for diversity of education, of experience, of background, of demographics. We want the foreign service, the talent, and the experiences to reflect the diversity of our country. And so when I say that to be a foreign service officer, we really do not have any specific degree requirement to come into the foreign service. You can, if you're going to enter, you can take the test while you're in school, and I encourage you to do that. And the experience that you acquire, whether it's internships during school or after graduation, that will be looked at, and it doesn't have to necessarily even be experience overseas. Many really great officers that have come into the foreign service did not have substantial overseas experiences. You don't need to speak a language to come in to the State Department. We have our Foreign Service Institute, which is based in Arlington, Virginia, and they will teach you languages. I was fortunate to come in with, Spanish fluency. I studied in Paraguay for a year in high school. I studied in Spain for a year in college, and I studied law school for a semester in Santiago, Chile. And then I taught myself Turkish on my first tour, and I was lucky that way. But I've had colleagues that have had full courses of 3 languages. And so if you want to learn languages and that's your thing, the State Department is for you. You will get paid to study languages. On the lower left, that is what we call orientation A100 class. Everybody who comes in as a foreign service officer or specialist goes through a mandatory required diplomatic training together, and you always remember the people that you spent that time with. And there we are on the 7th floor, where the secretary has his office. There's a beautiful reception room, and that's where we were sworn in that day to be foreign service officers. We swear an oath to the Constitution. I've served under 7 different secretaries of state, and I think it's 5 administrations now, or maybe 6. And we represent the American people, regardless of who is sitting in the White House. Our job is overseas to advance U.S. and promote U.S. values and national interests. On the top there was my last day as a vice consul in our consular section in Ethiopia. Great crew. And on the bottom was when I was American Citizen Service Chief in Buenos Aires. And that was our farewell party for 2 of our interns that came down and worked with us for 10 weeks during the fall semester. Next. So I wanted to just give a kind of a snapshot, a window into what an embassy looks like, because I know from movies and things like that, everyone hears the ambassador, and ambassadors, political appointees. If you read the news too, I think it's over half now for the last 2 administrations, and so they can vary. Oftentimes for very big missions, Japan, important bilateral large missions that have a lot of commercial and economic interests or military cooperation, there'll be a political appointee there. Carolyn Kennedy, for example, was a recent ambassador in Japan, and we've had senators. Currently a senator who Jeff Flake, who was senator in Arizona, who's the ambassador to Turkey. But the other half is career members of the Foreign Service, such as myself. That's really when you start up, that for some people is their goal, is to rise to become an ambassador. And the ambassador is the president's designated representative in a particular country. But under the ambassador, or what you call the deputy ambassador, the deputy chief of mission, is the person who is usually a career member of the Foreign Service. Not always. We've had civil service people that have risen to be an ambassador. Our ambassador to Mexico 2 iterations ago, Roberta Jacobson, she was a civil service employee who came in through our Presidential Management Fellowship Program and rose to the level of a DCM in Peru, and then became the ambassador to Mexico, in addition to the Assistant Secretary for Western Hemisphere Affairs. But under the Deputy Chief of Mission, and they really are the person that manages the huge sections and people and resources within an embassy or consulate. So in the career track for foreign service officers, you have a career track of management, consular, public diplomacy, economic, and political. I have actually had the privilege to serve in all of those career tracks, a tour in my career. But the management career track, if you are somebody that likes to manage budgets, people, and really everything that makes operationally an embassy function, they're kind of the CFO of the embassy. Consular services, really the outward face of the embassy. They're the people that know every part of a country, because every day they are interviewing and talking to people from every part of that country. They really do know trends and things that are happening. And a lot of times when I was a consular officer, for example, in Ethiopia, we wouldn't be able to reach certain areas because, if something was happening, it was too dangerous, but we would have somebody come for an interview for something, and we would ask them whether or not they would like to share their experiences with somebody from our political section, so that they could have a better understanding of country conditions in that area where we necessarily wouldn't be able to get to. So consular, also, we exist overseas to protect and keep safe Americans that travel and live overseas. And so consular American Citizen Services, when you see a drawdown or you hear that they're ordering the departure of essential personnel from an embassy, know that really the last 2 sections of people, the head of sections that are going to leave an embassy are going to be the consular services and management. And during the recent drawdown and closure of our embassy in Kabul, that was absolutely the case. Public diplomacy, I've been the spokesperson and press attaché in Buenos Aires during WikiLeaks. It was a very interesting, if not challenging time, I would say, during our bilateral relationships with Argentina. But a lot of the things we do in the public diplomacy realm too is outreach on cultural affairs and programs. And we bring in a lot of interesting people to discuss American culture. We brought in, for example, a book author who a lot of Americans had never really heard of, but his book was literally the top of the bestseller in Argentina, and people lined up blocks to see him. And that was a really great way to engage on a topic during a period where maybe our bilateral political relations with a country weren't really great, but they were so excited to have this part of our culture and to get to talk to this author and hear about his input on his book. Regional security, that is a specialty career, and under the Diplomatic Security Bureau in the department, many have law enforcement backgrounds, but not always. A lot of actually former lawyers. I just did a session with a colleague who worked for the Secret Service and was a prosecutor before that, and then came in as a diplomatic security agent. We have engineers that work with our regional security office. They're charged with the protection of all embassy chief of mission personnel, both when they're in the consulate or embassy and all their private homes. Because one of the benefits of being a foreign service officer or specialist is that our housing's free overseas, our utilities are free overseas. If your kids go to school overseas, all their education at some of the best schools really in the world is all free. So, government salary, you're not going to get rich, in a 19-year career like me in the foreign service, but you're also not going to, in 13 years when I was overseas, I didn't pay for any rent. So that is an advantage. Political and economic. What I can kind of give you just an example of what really the work of a political and economic officer would be. Economic, we have companies, for example, in Argentina, we had 500 US companies there. And so the econ section was very involved with working with and also reporting back to Washington on business climate in those countries and certain issues and bilateral agreements and loans from the IMF. But for political, when you see on CNN something happen in the world, CNN is telling you what's happening. This is what's happening. But the political officer in that embassy at that moment is doing reporting to Washington as to why it's happening. They have the background and expertise in country. They've talked to people to be able to give a very, informed analysis about why that's happening. So the person back in the CNN booth, they can speculate and they may be kind of an armchair quarterback about certain international events that are happening, but it's the political officers and the employees, that are locally employed staff that are able to work together to really provide a great complete picture of why those things are happening. Next. So why the State Department? Why did I come to the State Department? I had a very successful career as a lawyer and was making more money than probably I still don't make now what I made when I left my law career, but you don't come to the State Department to make money, honestly. And if you're somebody that's really what your motivating factor is, and that's great, I have no judgment on that. But it's really, for me, it's about public service. And I had a lot of loans that I had to pay off. And once I paid them off, I knew that I came in under Colin Powell, seated there with half of my orientation class. We were so big, we were 90 plus that we had to do it in 2 photos. But he started the Diplomatic Readiness Initiative after 9/11. And he studied at the National War College, where when he went there, he said that, I went there to study war, but I actually learned more and understand that it really is about how to be diplomatic and how to make peace in the world. And so very inspired by him. A lot of my colleagues we came in and, the current secretary said in a podcast recently that there aren't many jobs where you get to come in and have the flag behind you every day. And the bottom photo is me in Ankara, and that's at the ambassador's residence there. I was an economic officer in Turkey, and I was also the staff assistant to the ambassador. He happens to be the person that was the charge d'affaires when Kabul fell this past August. And it is an enormous privilege and responsibility that you have when you serve abroad. It's 24/7. You are an ambassador of your country, and everything you do and say reflects on, us as a country. You don't get to kind of take off your hat as a diplomat. And on the left, though, if you are like me and had a lot of debt from both my undergraduate and graduate degrees, I got that degree at the National War College in national security strategy, paid for by the government. So I went there, and it's the premier service college in the United States. I'm in the middle, sandwiched between colleagues from the Army and Air Force, and then our colleagues from Turkey and Kazakhstan and Beirut. We had 33 international fellows from around the world. It was really the most impactful year in my career, in the sense that I understand now how, because working with the interagency to get things accomplished, there's things that you can do on bilateral things through the State Department, but really everything is about all collectively U.S. government agencies working towards one similar strategic objective to get things done and to promote our U.S. national interests abroad. As I had said, you are apolitical as a State Department Foreign Service officer when you're serving overseas. There at the bottom, we hosted a program for Supreme Court justices came and discussed rule of law issues in Argentina when I was there. Very exciting as a lawyer to meet members of the Supreme Court. There are programs, both scholarship and graduate. Two graduate programs that I will talk about in the next presentation. If you could advance the slide, please. So these are the 13 mentions that when people apply for the Foreign Service Officer test and they do the 6 required narratives to register to take the test, which is free. And again, there's no really downside to taking the test if you think you might be interested in it. The current registration will open on April 25th for the June 4th through 11th test. And I'll put some more information in the chat after I finish the general presentation. But the dimensions you see here, it's a good way too to just think about where you are in terms of your academics and any internships or work experiences that you've had to date. Because, I think these apply for the Foreign Service because we know, and it is shown that the best predictor of how somebody is going to perform as a Foreign Service officer or Foreign Service specialist is how they have performed and can give examples of this from the previous work experience prior to joining the State Department. And so, you will be, during the oral assessment, you have to be able to provide examples that will show you having composure, in a stressful situation, that you are able to adapt, culturally to different environments. And that doesn't mean that you have served abroad and lived abroad like I did. Some of the best, examples can be and have been of people that are working in very culturally diverse work environments in the United States. There was somebody, I always, when I see a stack of resumes and have hired a lot of interns in my day at the State Department, I worked in food service when I was, going to school. And so I knew that if I saw somebody that had worked, as a waitress or a waiter, or a sales associate, one of my best interns worked as a sales associate from Walmart, that they were going to be very hardworking and that they, there was no task that was going to be beneath them that they weren't going to want to do, because it was all about learning. And so, think about those kind of things and resourcefulness and working with others. It's really, you can't do what we do in the State Department if you're somebody that can't work with others across, language barriers, across cultural barriers. It really is both, the greatest part of the job, and one for people that don't really like to kind of get out of their comfort zone and learn new things. Then maybe this isn't the job for them. Next. So I'm not going to go in too much to this because we are going to be announcing there's going to be some changes to the Foreign Service Officer test and how the test itself will stay the same, but I'm not going to get ahead of any media note that will go out, but we will, if you sign up for the talent management system, we will send out information sessions. I will be doing them so that people can understand how the test will be, going forward. It's still, the registration is not going to change in the actual multiple choice and things like that, but there's just some other things that will change. But one thing you do have to do is know which career track when you register you want to do: consular, economic, management, political, and public diplomacy. And if you go onto the careers.state.gov website, which I'll put in the chat, you can take a little quiz and it will ask you questions, and they're meant to kind of get at the certain elements of the particular career track, and you will indicate, I like to be around large groups of people, or I like to, sit in my, I like to write, long analytical things. And so it'll then show you, oh, if you don't like to sit in an office and not deal with people every day, then maybe, political is not for you. If you love, interacting with people and being in like a busy office environment, consular, may be the place for you. If you like to do numbers and resources, or if you love public speaking, and travel, public diplomacy is your career track. Next. Again, these are the specialists, the Foreign Service specialists. We have 24 tracks. On the left is diplomatic special agents. That's the DSSAA organization. Middle, we have medical professionals, and there's the engineering specialists that work and actually build our embassies. We call them new embassy compounds. Next. And there's my information, the email again. And that story I told you about the officer, when I was a student in Paraguay, that gentleman in the back with the peach shirt, I would meet him in an elevator in Buenos Aires in our embassy. I was going to lunch with our deputy ambassador, and he turned to me and he said, "I think I'm having lunch with you." And then I recognized him right away and said, "Where did you serve before?" And sure enough, Paraguay was his first tour, and that was the person that I met at the buffet line when I was 15 and had inspired me to be in the Foreign Service. I would then get to work for him in Argentina, and he'd become my colleague and good friend when I served in the Office of the Inspector General. So I would say to people of college age, stay off your phone sometimes, and don't be the person that doesn't talk to some, person in a buffet line, because they could really change the whole course of your life and trajectory. And I've always been kind of a person that talks to someone in the airplane seat next to me or in line, because you always can learn from somebody, whoever they are, at whatever level, wherever they are. I was fortunate in that photo on the right, when I was in Afghanistan, sitting there listening to me is the 4-star General McKiernan, who was the overall commanding general of U.S. international forces in Afghanistan for my year there. And that's behind me is the Spanish colonel who was the head of the provincial reconstruction team. And I was briefing him on rule of law and on some Taliban folks in the province. So if you had told me, my 15-year-old self, that someday I would be, as a woman, the only woman in that room, if you can't see it, but behind the generals, about 2 rows of just military men, both Afghan, Italian, Spanish, and American, and that they would all be intently listening to me give a briefing, I would say, pinch me, I don't believe it. But that's the Foreign Service, and that's the kind of career that you can have, and very unpredictable in the most wonderful ways. So let's get to the student presentation, unless we have any questions from anybody. Anyone have a question before I go on to the student stuff? No?
I do see a question. When is the best time to apply for Foreign Service? I'm a first semester junior and will be studying abroad in Costa Rica starting this July through December in an immersive program. I will return and be a senior and would be interested in applying after I graduate.
Oh, there. Okay. That, Carly, is, I think the best thing to do is to complete your program. But I would also tell you that and I'll show you in the next presentation about the different, maybe you're not aware of, scholarship programs, critical language programs, and fellowship programs to get graduate school paid for, and their fellowships, their employment gateways into the State Department. But the added bonus is that you end up getting a graduate degree in international relations or a related field, and then come into the State Department. And you also get 2 paid for overseas internships. So let's begin on this one. Next. So one of the really great things that just happened, that the State Department and I think Congress had been wanting to do, and they finally budgeted for it, and it came through just a few weeks ago, we announced on April 4th the paid internship program. Prior to that, we had one paid internship program, which was the Foreign Service Internship Program, which was for 2 summers, and it was a cohort of 50 people. They were paid at the GS4 level. And, you know, a lot of people applied, and there were few spots. This new paid internship program that starts fall 2020, the deadline has passed because we got 2,000 applications and the cutoff was met well before the April 12th deadline. Always when we do these, and if you haven't set up a profile on usajobs.gov, for all of the internship, scholarship, fellowship programs, or foreign service specialist programs, or our consular fellow programs, I want for, if you are wanting to use your Spanish and don't get into the foreign service, consular fellow program is a limited non-career appointment for languages such as there's Spanish, Portuguese, Chinese, and Arabic, that you can come in for a 5-year limited term, and you will be a consular officer, working like an entry-level consular officer like I did in Ethiopia, and for a year when I was in Turkey, and have all the benefits, all your housing paid for, you know, the same entry-level salary that somebody would get. So the critical thing, though, is the usajobs.gov. Go on, create the profile, and know that whatever the timeline is when they say it opens on April 4th through April 12th, or whenever the cutoff is met, the cutoff is always met immediately. So if you don't have your application in there, literally sometimes within the first couple hours, you're not going to even have your application considered. So it's really important to tee things up. And, you know, it opens at midnight the day of the first day of the vacancy. And that's a little inside baseball that a lot of people don't know. I still keep getting emails from students saying, is it too late to apply? And yes, and that's why you sign up in our yellow. That's why you reach out to me in office hours, and you'll know all these things. If it's a career that's really of interest to you, you'll make sure that you ask the questions and you get the information to put you in the best position to be competitive to get these opportunities. Next. So this is the virtual student federal service, and I have 4 virtual interns that have worked with me this well, since January, because I was working on the Afghan evacuation resettlement from August, right before Kabul fell, until just the end of December. But this program, which opens on July 1st and it closes on July 31st, and again, you have to go to usajobs.gov to create the profile, but you go to the vsfs.org website, and that's where the projects will be. So on July 1st, you will go in as a student and you will bid, you know, up to 3 projects, and they can be at embassies or consulates worldwide, or in bureaus and offices with the State Department, or like the diplomats and residents. Almost all of us have BSFS interns from schools in the states of the regions that we covered. So I have 2 from Indiana. I have 1 from Ohio and 1 from Michigan. Someone from Kentucky didn't apply, so I didn't get to get 1 from each state, and I doubled up on your state. But that is unpaid, but it is a commitment of maximum of 10 hours a week, and you don't have to have a security clearance. So, you know, I've had office hours with students who are current VSFS interns, and they're doing really interesting projects in Morocco or Senegal or Poland or Brazil. One that's working in the department on cybersecurity issues, another on, you know, population, refugee and migration issues. So that's really a good opportunity for those who don't want to go to Washington for either the paid or unpaid program for summer, spring, or fall, and they you know, want to stay in their area for the year. Next. This is what I had explained about the student internship. That's reached, that cutoff is over. I'll have to change that slide. Those photos, one is the ambassador's residence in Ireland. Interns had a blast that came for the summer and really helped us pull this off. Every embassy, one of the biggest events we do for bilateral relations is our 4th of July. And it is a highly coveted invitation in every country I've ever served in. And Ireland, was really, we had over 2,000 people that came. Every year is different, showcasing food and beverages from the United States and fireworks, and it's wonderful. There on the left was Allison's last day, our intern in Buenos Aires. We took her out for a great steak lunch, and she did a lot of work on. We do a lot of outreach with American citizens in all the different areas of a country that we serve in, getting them to renew their passports or apply for their children, what we call a consular report of birth abroad, or helping Americans in distress. And so she got to do a lot of cool stuff during her 10-week internship and really helped us out a lot. But there's the qualifications. You have to have a minimum 3-point GPA, be a US citizen, and you have to qualify for a security clearance as well. And you have to have resuming student status. Next. This was the other paid internship program that is 2 summers, and you really get an incredible experience with mentors. It says 3.2 grade point average, but it's so competitive that I think it's on average, it tends to be, the median is probably 3.5. You have to create the resume in USA Jobs, submit a transcript and a statement of interest about financial aid and any diverse background that you have. Next. So the fellowships, these are kind of the premier fellowships for this Department of State, the Thomas Pickering and Charles Rangel. The only difference really is in the internships that you'll do in the summer. The Rangel, the first summer's internship is on Capitol Hill, where you'll be there learning about how important the relationship is between the State Department and Capitol Hill. And then the Pickering does 2 overseas internships, where the second year of the Rangel is the overseas internship. Again, those GPAs are a minimum, and I would say in terms of being competitive for them, the application process is competitive, but apply, because here at Michigan, I have a Rangel actually that I'm meeting with tomorrow. She's just finishing her first year here at Michigan, and she had applied for the US FSIP, and her diplomat in residence, she's from Arizona, kind of not discouraged, but was like, it's real hard to do. And she applied anyway, which you all should. You should apply for everything. I always say you will not get 100% of the jobs, internships, scholarships, fellowships, and opportunities that you do not put your hat in your name in the hat for or apply for. You just need to apply for things. And I didn't pass the Foreign Service test the first time. I didn't. That happens. Most Foreign Service officers will tell you a story about not passing it, either the written or the oral, the first time. This career is one that rewards resilience and resourcefulness. But that fellowship program is really an employment program, because not only do you get the graduate degree paid for, but really after your graduate degree and your 2 internships overseas, if you're Pickering and the domestic and the overseas, if you're Rangel, you then get to start at the Foreign Service. You become a Foreign Service officer upon completion of that second internship. Next. So this is a relatively new fellowship for people that have cybersecurity or IT interest or background. We will pay for either 2 years of an undergraduate degree or 2 years of a graduate degree if you receive this fellowship. And we had 4 people this year. We just chose them 3 weeks ago, and we had 32 finalists, and we had 5 finalists from my region, North Central, and 4 of them were offered the fellowship, and 4 out of 15, that's pretty good. So if you are not interested in IT, let people know, and you can see right there the requirements. Again, citizenship is required. Although one of the fellows who was from Ohio, he became a naturalized citizen in October of 21, and that was just 2 months before he applied for the fellowship. So the citizenship is just, if you're a citizen, you're a citizen. I don't care whether you're born here or you're naturalized. That's how the Department of State looks at citizenship. Next. So critical language opportunities, and these are the things that, a lot of students don't know about, although there is most schools should have an advisor that is required to, have information and be an advisor on these programs. Fulbright always, but the Gilman, and there you can look those up. Really great opportunities to study abroad. And the critical language scholarship for folks that, it's not for Spanish or French or going to countries like Costa Rica, but, if you're wanting to learn Russian or Swahili or Chinese, those are really great opportunities. And the Boren as well, to participate and travel and get that study abroad experience paid for, very important. So those are opportunities that you should definitely see whether or not you would qualify for, and if qualified, apply to all of them. Next. So working at the State Department is kind of cool sometimes too. For my first tour, I was finishing work on a Friday night, and I was actually hosting a dinner party at my house with a lot of people, and they said, hey, you got to be on call because you are going to have to go pick somebody up and facilitate their entry into the country. They're making a last minute kind of turn here to the thing. And I said, well, I have about 12 people going to be waiting at my house for a sit down dinner party. And they're like, well, it's not really optional. So it turned out it was Brad Pitt. So I guess when I asked, when they called me, and I said, really, we're just sitting down to dessert. And they said, yeah, you have to go. And I was like, all right, well, I'll go. But he came back a second time, and he actually had his agent ask for me because I wasn't really, I wasn't one of those. I was actually kind of annoyed that I had to give up my dinner party. And so I think sometimes celebrities like the people that don't really care. And so, yeah, he hopped in my car and dropped him off after he spent a couple days in country. And on the left was really one of the highlights of my life, because I'm a runner and have run several marathons. And that's the great Haile Gebrselassie, who is just not only is one of the nicest people I've ever met, and one of the most generous with his countrymen and others of his time, but yeah, he has a 10-mile record that I don't think will ever be broken. So Oprah came to Ethiopia too when I was there, and she came 3 weeks after Brad Pitt. And then I was jealous because my friend got to do her, meet and greet and be her control person. And I said, why can't I? I love Oprah. And they said, you already got one. And I said, but I didn't ask for that one. Had I known Oprah was coming, I think that I would have chosen Oprah over Brad Pitt for sure. Anyway, so if you want to shut down the presentation, Carolyn, and I guess we can open it up to questions if people have them. So I know I can't see anyone, but I don't think we have a big group. Is there any way to be able to have a good couple discussions with people and turn on Anna and Caitlin and Carly and Oana? You guys are welcome to turn your camera on or not. Sometimes I get like 100 people that want to have their camera on and we're all having a conversation. And other times I did a 50-person thing last night and nobody wanted to, so it's all good. Let me again put in the chat this registration for our talent management system, just so that you can keep up to date on things. I'm just gonna right now put a couple of links in so that you'll have them. This first one's the most important, really, to be able to keep in touch, that tiny URL. And then the careers.state.gov website, and I'll do the link here. And then as well, our internships. So right there.
So I don't know if we're, go ahead, Shannon, sorry.
Oh, sorry, I'm just gonna do the professional, the fellowships too. There, you'll have the fellowships. I'm sorry, Dr. Gupta.
No, I don't know if we're going to get any more questions, but thank you so much for all this information. Fun fact, before I decided to, go to, study English. I actually wanted to be in the Foreign Service in India. So listening to you talk, I was like, these are all the reasons why I really, really wanted to join the Foreign Service. It didn't quite work out. I got the admission here, but it's great. It really, so how much do you travel?
Well, I mean, it depends. Right now in this assignment, we're still virtual. But if you're talking about like career, and I would add that in my orientation class, we had a gentleman whose parents had both been ambassadors in the Indian diplomatic foreign service, and he came to get his graduate degree on an F, and then worked for a company on an H-1B, and then became a citizen. He married an American, and then joined the Foreign Service. So we do have examples of people from other countries, even who have parents that were in their foreign services that then join our foreign service. So what I'm telling you is the dream is never, beyond. My partner, he's a retired foreign service officer, and he has a PhD in political military history from UNC Chapel Hill. So we do have a lot of, and one of my best friends joined after teaching and had a PhD in history at SUNY. So we do really welcome everyone from all backgrounds and all education interests and things like that. But travel, it can just depend. When I was a regional consular officer based out of Frankfurt, I covered 9 countries in Central and West Africa and 2 in the Balkans. And I traveled 3 weeks out of every month. So I literally just had enough time to like unpack, wash my clothes, pack them up, and go again. Sometimes when you're in country, if you're a public affairs officer and you have a lot of programs like in a big country like Argentina, or a large, we had the embassy but no consulate. So if things happened in other districts, provinces, I was flying to Mendoza and to northern provinces and southern provinces as well. I got as far as Ushuaia, the southernmost part in Tierra del Fuego. So it just really depends. In Afghanistan, I flew all the time on helicopters, on planes. In Turkey as well, I covered, but that was, we traveled a lot by car there, and also in Ireland, all over, travel it's a small country, so it was pretty easy to travel. But yeah, it just really depends. And when I was back in Washington most recently, I was in Philadelphia for 3 weeks, we evacuated 13,000 Afghans through that port of entry after Kabul fell. And then I was in Wisconsin for a month at Fort McCoy as the team lead for the State Department there, helping to resettle Afghans. So it just really depends on the assignment and what's required. But that's what being worldwide available is. You really have to be willing to step up when things happen, just like they are right now.
And just a technical question. So when you are given an assignment in another country, the government takes care of everything, your airfares, your
everything, and your families. So they pay for whoever is your dependent, they pay for, and for kids that are under 21, as soon as they graduate from college, and then you would have to pay for them to come back. But for the kids that are school age, you have to pay for your own kids' college. But for high school, up through high school, that's all paid for. And if you end up going to a post that's either unaccompanied, sometimes, for example, you'll be in, let's just say you're in Japan and they need you to be in Iraq, which is unaccompanied. Your family will stay in Japan and your kids will stay in school there, and you'll go to Iraq, and then on your, we call them R&Rs, you can go back and visit your family a couple times a year. But all that is covered, all those flights, all the plane tickets and things like that. And we, get medical evacuation if, excuse me, my battery is about to go off on my computer, so I need to plug that in. They will pay for that. And yes, when you move, if you're outside of Washington, when you join the Foreign Service, they will pay for all your moving costs, and you get per diem when we come back for trainings in between assignments. And one of the best kept secrets about the Foreign Service is between our assignments overseas, when we come back, we have mandatory home leave that we must take. So you get like at least a month off, sometimes 6 weeks off, just to kind of reacclimate and get to know the country that you're representing again. Because sometimes, you'll have spent 3 years overseas and may or may not have come home at all during that time.
Well, thank you so much. Does anybody have any other questions? All right. Well, thank you so much, Shannon. My computer died out, which is why I couldn't introduce you, but I did leave your bio in the chat. So I hope people got a chance to read that. Thank you so, so much. I hope that many more students view this recording, which we will have up on our website.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity. I don't know that we've had someone go visit in person, but hopefully when we go back to in-person recruiting, that we will be able to meet in person. And I really appreciate the invitation. And I wish everybody the best with the year-end exams. And please let me know if you want to sign up for office hours. Be happy to have a conversation with you.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.